So let's talk about when I went to basic training, but let's go for a drive. So I went through basic training back in 1999. So obviously a lot of things have changed. It's just really, I just thought it'd be fun to kind of share my story of what it was like for me going through basic training. So I went from the LA MEPS to basic training. So we were at MEPS, did the whole official swear-in. You had this little packet that you had to take with you, jumped on a bus, took you to LAX, and then from LAX it was off to Georgia, where I went to basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia. When we got to Georgia, I think there was a person there to greet us at the airport, to take us over to the bus, and then you got on the bus, and it was pretty late at night. I think it was like 11, 12 o'clock at night, something like that, and we were pretty nervous. The only thing I knew what it was going to be like was kind of from movies and TV shows, so I'm expecting once we get there it to be like you see in movies and TV shows where the drill sergeants are rushing the bus and yelling at you and screaming at you and telling you to get the hell off the bus and all that fun stuff, but little did I know that it's reception, and that's not like that at reception. So we showed up to the place. It took us I think an hour from the airport, it felt like, before we finally arrived at Fort Benning at the reception area. Someone got on the bus, I think it was a drill sergeant, and they told us, hey, to form a line over here, and then they brought us into this little auditorium. Inside the auditorium, they really just had us kind of filling out some paperwork, pulling some stuff out of our packets. We had this little card that we had to fill out that was basically like a little letter to send back to our family to tell them that we made it to basic training safely, which I'd be curious to know if my dad still has that. It'd be kind of cool. And then from there they took us to these little temporary barracks that we're gonna be staying in, which is just like a big open room that had a bunch of bunk beds and wall lockers. And the first week was just reception stuff. You're just doing a lot of paperwork, you're getting your uniforms issued to you, and a lot of that stuff, but you're still kind of nervous because you don't know what to expect. There was some people that, just reception was scary enough to them that they threatened to kill themselves. It was pretty crazy. So you had these people that had to walk around with these road guard vests on. They had no shoelaces just in case they wanted to use them to hang themselves with. There was an area in Fort Benning at the reception area, which I don't think they have it as a chow hall area anymore, but there's this upper area and then maybe about a floor down to where actually the chow hall was at. And down below is where we'd also form up to kind of wait to, file into the chow hall. And there was a guy on the upper half of it that tried jumping off to kill himself. Well, he ended up just landing on another soldier, breaking that soldier's legs. And I think that soldier, I don't know if that soldier ever went on to actually do basic training, but I heard that they were in basic training's reception area for a long time trying to recover. I was not a very physically fit person. I was really skinny. I think I weighed 150 something pounds, I want to say. So I didn't have a whole lot of upper body strength. When you're in that reception area, you have to do this initial PT test, which is a very low standards compared to the Army or even in basic training. And I had a hard time just meeting the upper body standards for the push-ups. So I failed it, I think by maybe 4 or 5, I don't remember how many by, but I failed it. So I had to go to this extra group that had to do extra PT to try to build up some strength and then, be able to pass that PT test. So I think I was only with that group for maybe 2 or 3 days before the rest of the group that I was with was going to be going off to the main basic training area. And I, had to do extra PT and then had to retake that little initial PT test. And that second time around, I ended up passing it. So I got to still go with my group. I didn't have to get laid over. But if you don't pass it that second time, then you could potentially get stuck there for an extra week or whatever until you can pass and then move on to basic training. But from there, you went on to the main area. And I think it was a holiday or something, because when we showed up, there's only a few drill sergeants there. I'm pretty sure I think it was a holiday that day that we kind of moved from reception over to the main area, and only maybe 3, 4 drill sergeants there for all of us, which was probably 100 of us or whatever. And they yelling at you and screaming at you like you see on TV, on movies, on the internet, whatever. But because there was so few of them and so many of us, you didn't have that much attention, drawn onto you, hopefully, unless you were someone who was screwing up or struggling to carry your bags or doing something, to really stand out. So I think I just got yelled at in passing as I was getting off the bus, and then from there the attention mostly went to some of the people that were super nervous and dropping their bag or just not so nervous they weren't doing something right or whatever, and all the attention went towards them, and I kind of lucked out on that phase. So prior to me going to basic training at Fort Benning, it was nothing but OSIT. The only people that went to Fort Benning for basic training or for OSIT was infantry individuals, people who were in combat arms. There wasn't anything like 88 Mikes or Cooks or anybody going to Fort Benning. Only combat infantry guys were going to basic training at Fort Benning. But we were the first class to actually start this new thing that they were doing, where we were doing just basic training, not OSIT. And it had people that were not in, combat arms MOSs. So because we weren't infantry soldiers, at least our drill sergeants in our platoon felt that we didn't deserve to have a hardcore platoon name like everybody else had. Everybody else had like Mad Dogs, Bulldogs, whatever kind of thing. But we ended up getting stuck being the Goldfish. So when we got called to attention, we had to sound off with Goldfish lead the way, bloop bloop. Of course, we got a lot of crap for it, but it was whatever. The other platoons would, give us crap about being the Goldfish and whatnot. But we had a pretty cool t-shirt in the end. In the end, someone designed a t-shirt because he had like platoon t-shirts that you could purchase. And I think I got one, but I don't know whatever happened to it. But ours had a Goldfish with like double belts of ammo going across his chest and like dual M16s. And it looked pretty cool. We even had a Goldfish mascot in our barracks room that we had to, or our barracks bay that we had to take care of. So like when I went through basic training, it was old school, days. We were still in BDUs, so that also meant you had to shine your boots, and you had an ammo can with a shoe shining kit in it, and usually be like somewhere in the evening times where you had a dedicated time to go downstairs and shine your boots. So during that time, they usually, I think, had fruit as well. So you'd go downstairs, eat some fruit, shine your boots. If we were allowed to, they would designate those times usually for being able to use the payphones. And yeah, it's old school, we had payphones. And that's when you got to, call your family. They would even probably hand out mail like around that time as well. For the most part, I didn't mind basic training. I didn't like it either. I mean, yeah, it was stressful. It was, fairly physical and everything. It was mostly just, kind of being restricted and, a lot of unknown elements to it. They kind of made you worried, and a lot of getting yelled at for no reason kind of stuff. But for the most part, it was okay. I managed to survive, obviously. Towards the end of basic training, they have like a field exercise or an FTX that you have to, participate in and spend, I think, maybe like 2 or 3 nights, I think it is, out in this little field problem. But I remember when we got out to that field problem, we had to dig a foxhole. Everybody had to, battle buddy up, with somebody and dig a foxhole. Well, I ended up getting screwed and stuck with an area for where my foxhole was going to be at right near a tree. So while everybody else, maybe it took them 20, 30 minutes or so to dig their foxhole up to their armpits, because that was the standards, was it had to be deep enough to where you could be in there up to your armpits. I ended up spending, I think, like 2 hours or something like that trying to dig this dang foxhole because I was so close to this tree and there's all these tree roots that were growing through it. So I'm hacking away with an E-tool. E-tool is all you have to dig the foxhole. That was all I had to chop at the roots to try to cut them out of there and try to get it deep enough. It was horrible. I think one of the drill sergeants kept on coming over and laughing at me about how crappy of a spot that I got compared to everybody else. And I think eventually they let me get away with not having to go all the way to the 6 feet because it was taking a long time to get that thing dug out. Also part of that FTX, you had to do like this little ambushy kind of exercise. So I remember when I was on the ambush side where we're hiding out on top of this hill waiting to ambush this other, squad that's going to come through. I'm trying to, be really quiet, and I'm stationed up on top of the side of the hill, and I started feeling all these bites all over my arms, and my arms are starting to hurt. And I realized that I'm actually laying inside of an anthill, and so all these ants are just eating me alive, and I'm trying to be quiet because I don't want, someone to hear me moving around. I want the drill sergeants to yell at me because I'm making too much noise, so I'm trying to like roll my arm around into the dirt and try to get these ants to just die so that they stop biting me. I think later a drill sergeant ended up coming by, and I think I told him, hey, I think I'm laying in an anthill, and he just told me to move. He was pretty cool about it, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But the next day I had a bunch of ant bites all over my arm. So at the end, you have graduation, and you had to, do rehearsal for the graduation. And because I was tall, I was towards the front of the formation. There was, I think, only one other guy that was taller than me. So that was the pivot man on the end of the formation. So you had to make the turns a specific way and all that kind of stuff, and had to be good at marching. Well, he wasn't very good at marching, so he ended up getting fired for that position. So that meant I had to move over into that position. Well, I wasn't very good at marching either, so I ended up getting fired from that position. And since I didn't have family coming to my graduation, they had me basically stay behind during graduation ceremony, clearing the barracks with a few other soldiers that were kind of in the same boat, where they didn't have any family coming, and maybe they weren't very good at marching or whatever the case might have been, and they had to stay behind and help clean the barracks. which ended up being all right. Like, I didn't really mind at all. I didn't really want to participate anyways. I remember, like, when everybody came back from, you know, the graduation ceremony, they were talking about, like, you know, this guy passed out or whatever. And the reason why, you know, you had that was, you know, you had to stand at attention for a long time. You had to stand at prayer and rest for a long time. And some people locked their knees and ended up, you know, passing out from that, from the lack of blood flow and all that stuff. So I really wasn't wanting to be a part of that anyway. So I was glad that I didn't have to participate in that. But also, so the people who had, like, family come out to graduation to watch them graduate, you know, they got to, you know, so many hours to go off and have a little bit of free time and, you know, do whatever and spend some of that family time together. And there was me and other people that didn't have families come out. So I think it was me and 2 other guys ended up kind of joining up, and we went to the mall nearby and then outside town and kind of roamed around through there. I remember we bought Discman. I bought a couple CDs. Pantera was one of the CDs I remember buying. And then we went and saw the movie Three Kings, because that movie had just came out around that time frame. So we went and saw the movie Three Kings, and ate some fast food because we hadn't had that in a long time. It was great. I remember it was pretty exciting. You know, we got to kind of splurge a little bit while we had a little bit of free time before we had to be back. So it wasn't too bad. You know, looking back on it, at the time it sucked, but now, you know, it was whatever kind of a thing. But from there, it's off to AIT, but I guess that's another story. So there you go. That was my little story about basic training. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you want to check out some other videos, I got some other recommended ones that YouTube are popping up for you right now. Of course, down in the description, I got my links to Patreon, to social media, and all that fun stuff. If you want more like this and more military-style content, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching. See you guys next time. See ya.